Evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Evermore, your Nufc podcast on the Slide Rule Pass YouTube channel. I'm your host, Chris, and I'm joined by the lads. I've got James Lynch, the Lynchman, the blue tick man who's fixing his hair. You look lovely, Dan. And we're joined by the stat man himself, Mark. How are you, boys?
Very good, thank you.
I'm very good, thank you, Chris.
Very good, mate. How are you, Chris?
Yes, I'm good. I'm actually evermore on tour, lads. As you can see here with my libation, I'm in the tropical climates of Shropshire. I thought I was going to score points there until Adam couldn't do the podcast because he was in fucking Vegas. So he's properly top trumpy there, lads. To be fair, but, hey ho, I've enjoyed it. As long as the Wi-Fi stays, we're all good. We're all good, guys. We're on YouTube tonight, guys. Obviously, we're live. Drop the comments on. Let us know what you think about everything I'm talking about tune-wise. But again, we've had another cracking weekend, lads. Evening, Stu. How you doing, bud? Good to have you back. We've had another cracking weekend, boys. We won another game. Is it getting a bit boring now, lads? You know, let's get stuck into the Brentford review. Cracking game. I was never worried about it. Lynchman, I'm going to come to you first. You were fucking no worried at all, mate. A week before, you thought we were going to piss all over these guys. Were you impressed, mate? Were you pleased? Were you happy? What were you feeling?
Well, I called it on last week's show, Chris. I could only see one win, to be honest. And I did say we would win 2-0, so I got the score prediction right as well. Look, there's a stark contrast in form between these two teams currently. We're on the up. We're looking further and further up the table. And Brentford are dropping like a stone. Look, of course, the red card changed the whole complexion of the game. You know, as a manager, you can do all the preparation in the world, but you know, when one of your players loses his head like Josh Da Silva did, you may as well just pack up and go home. But that aside, we totally dominated. I think we had something like 63% possession, a total of 26 shots, and we were just clinical in front of goal, and two fantastic goals at that. Joelinton with his second of the season, he took that header really well. He loves playing against Brentford, doesn't he? He scored against them earlier in the season as well in the 3-3, and Willock just keeps on going from strength to strength, and what a finish from him just before half time. And we are playing some outstanding football right now, it has to be said. We're keeping more and more clean sheets, but more importantly, we're attacking with intent, with a purpose. And I'm going into most games now thinking we'll win every one, which is an amazing position to be in. And
you feeling okay, James? Feeling okay?
It's been positive.
I think. Look, when you're on that crest of the wave, you've got to ride it, and don't look down, don't get off it, and that mentality shift from myself and the squad, it's just so apparent, and there's such a belief with this team now and with the fan base, and even without Maximin again on Saturday, these players delivered, especially Ryan Fraser, who we'll come on to talk about a little bit later, who I thought was man of the match. So yeah, look, just to sum up, again, I'm delighted, Chris, and I can easily see us finishing as high as 10th this season now if we keep playing like that.
Well, if Di was here, you'd say you were on some of that ecstasy again, mate. But listen, that's what wins do. Dan, you jumped in there, mate. What did you think about the weekend? Firstly, did you think it was a red card, mate? Because in real time, I didn't think it was that bad. When they slowed it down, I thought it was quite a bad challenge, mate.
Yeah, but obviously, Mike Dean has clearly missed it, hasn't he? Because he's given it the other way initially. But when you slow it down, you realise that if he had made a clean contact and a sort of prolonged contact on that target's leg, that could snap his ankle quite easily.
Yeah.
And when you consider that, I know it wasn't malicious and it wasn't perhaps intended, but in today's game, I think it is a red card, yes, in my opinion. And of course, that didn't help Brentford. I mean, they probably did help us. Not that we were going to complain at all, because after that, we did pretty much assume total control of the game. Obviously, Joelinton will get the headlines. Joe Willock will get the headlines. But I'd like to reiterate what James has said. I thought Ryan Fraser was absolutely phenomenal. And he's been playing well for quite a little while now. Eddie Howe's got him going in a good vein of form, and he deserves immense credit, because this is a man who, under Steve Bruce, couldn't buy a good performance. I remember that 1-0 loss against Sheffield United last season, and he was sent off and we were all absolutely slating him. Just like Joelinton, it's been some turnaround from him. So fair play to him, credit to him, because now I don't see how you could drop him, which is a massive, massive compliment to pay him.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to come into Ryan Fraser a little bit more detail in a minute, but you're right, mate. I mean, I think all the performances from the players have been brilliant. Mark, just to bring you in, I was watching a stream and the commentator just kept saying every player has vastly improved under Eddie Howe. They were almost laughing about it, just saying, it's getting a bit boring now, saying that every single player has improved under Eddie Howe. What did you think about the performance, mate? Did you think it was quite assured? Even before the red card, I thought we were on top. What was your take on it, mate?
Yeah, I think that it was a lot of nervousness from Brentford. I think Newcastle came into it massively, full of confidence, and it shows. You come into a game after 6 games without losing. That's going to pave the way into a good performance, and they never, took their foot off the gas. Even getting one up, it wasn't the old days of try and hold on to this. It was right. Well, we can go and get a second. We can go out and win this game and not give them a sniff, and that was exactly it. And I think touch on that, the red card. It was absolutely a red card. I don't think there's any intent in the challenge. You can see what De Silva was doing and trying to kind of rotate round the ball to try and turn away from Target, and he's unlucky that Target got underneath him. But yeah, it was a red card all day long, and he is lucky that Target didn't come off any worse with that. I thought Joelinton again. We called this the King Joes, haven't we? And it was rightly so, because I think the two of them sort of stole the headlines a little bit. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the star of the show was Fraser, because I thought he was very, very good. But then I don't think there was a player on the pitch at the weekend that came out of it with no credit at all. They thought they were all very, very good, and it just shows what a difference that bloke from Bournemouth has made to the club.
That bloke who got Bournemouth relegated as the Baron of Bacon said,
Yeah.
How are you getting on, Steve? Let us think about that for a minute. This is a Newcastle podcast. We're not going to talk about it. But you're right, lads, to be fair. I mean, I was so impressed with the lads. I mean, as James rightly says there, we just look assured, we look confident going into games. We don't look like we're going to concede ground to these teams around us, never mind the teams above us. I mean, we've obviously played a lot of big teams when, Eddie had a couple of bad results, which anybody could against them teams when they show up. But I think the confidence we're playing with now, those big teams would want to play us tomorrow the way we're playing. We're on form, the confidence is there, our key players are standing up, they're puffing their chests out, they're making themselves, a key integral elements of a game. I think Joe Willock, just to talk about Joe Willock for a minute there, he's been absolutely immense, and I think that's testament again to Eddie Howe's man management ability. This is a lad who we thought was the next Kennedy. There was loads of us written him off, really, and he's got him back, he's put his arm around him, he's got him playing. But what he's got him doing now is he's got him doing the graft and the goals, which is just brilliant. He's a better player now, probably, than he was last season when he scored all those goals. Obviously, Joe gets the credit, as we rightly said, big Joelinton. He's made himself undroppable. But if we just move on, we'll mention him a couple of times, lads, so we might as well just, bring it up now. The wee man, Fraser's form, he's been absolutely phenomenal. The mainstream media were quite mischief making, I think, on this. Coming to you first on this, Dan. Oh, maybe not, he's disappeared. Coming to you first, maybe Mark on this. The wee man obviously was, the press were looking for just something to, I don't know, throw some shit at Newcastle United or whatever it may be. So it was easy and lazy journalism to say, Ryan Fraser fell out with Eddie Howe, he wouldn't play for him, yada, yada, yada. But again, it's not just testament of how good a manager Eddie Howe is, but it also tells you a lot more about Fraser's character as well, doesn't it, that he's pulling in these performances, mate.
Well, it does. I mean, if you go back, you look at the amount he's been used, certainly under Howe to what he was used under Bruce. I think the amount of time that he spent on the field in, the 17 games that he's played under Howe, he's got nearly as many minutes under him as he did in the year and a bit that he played under Bruce, in 10 less games. He's got the same goal and assist return from those games as well. They're not very high, but you're starting to see the performance come out of him, and he was utterly brilliant at the weekend. I think his pass completion was above 90%. He had 75 touches of the ball. He was that all action kind of performance. You've seen over the last few weeks how much graft he puts into games. And that's been a huge part of the Eddie Howe turnaround here, is just how much effort the players are putting into these games. You never saw this under Bruce, but you weren't expecting to see it under Bruce, because not that the players weren't putting the shift in, but they're being asked to do something completely different to what they've done before at Newcastle. and they're enjoying their football. And I think that's the biggest thing. You enjoy your football, you're going to get performances out of them. And Fraser is just at that point now where he's back in the side. He's playing in a position that suits him. He's playing down on the sort of the wide sides again. And even the switch over left, right to left for this week, and it didn't faze him at all. And like I say, he was, I think, head and shoulders above everybody at the weekend. And unfortunately, just didn't grab the headlines. But I think Newcastle fans will obviously see the effort that he puts in and what you get out of it at the end of it.
Yeah, James, just bringing you in on this one, mate. Do you think as well that we're seeing consistency from Fraser, not just in performances, but also staying fit as well? Do you think that's to do with the Eddie Howe method, that he knows this player, he knows how the guy's body works, he knows how to use him? Do you think that's a lot to do with that as well, mate?
Absolutely, Chris, and that's a very good point you make there. In my opinion, I do believe he's playing the best football of his career right now, and I think he's just turned 28 years old. He's arguably hitting his peak. Look, we've already talked about this tonight. He was criminally underused under the last manager. Not so much underused, the fact that Bruce just didn't know what to do with him. He played him in about 4 or 5 different positions. But with Eddie Howe, this is a manager that knows exactly how to get the best out of him. And those two, it has to be said, have a really special relationship. They have that special bond. I read a great article recently about Fraser's time at Bournemouth when he was a lot younger. And how Eddie Howe used to take him out for dinner. He even arranged for him to have cooking lessons when he was much younger, when he was living alone. And it's just little things like that go a long way with a player, that kind of man management side of things, which Eddie Howe is so good at. And I think there's a genuine trust there between the two of them, and it's paying off on the pitch. And Mark made some good points earlier. It was interesting, actually, that he started on the left on Saturday, which is actually his preferred position. It was the position he played when he was at Bournemouth, and he was easily the best player on the pitch, as we've rightly said. So it's likely that he will retain that spot for Brighton on that left-hand side, and the likelihood is Maximin will come in if he's fit for Murphy on the right. But right now, in a team that is collectively putting in outstanding individual performances all over the pitch, Ryan Fraser, for me, is standing out amongst everyone in terms of his work rate and his effort. And on current form, it has to be said, he's probably one of the best wide men in the league. And I just hope that he can stay fit, because he does have a bit of a bad injury record. But if he can stay fit, he will be and has been such an important part of our team. And right now, again, he's one of the first names on the team sheet.
Absolutely. Dan, just to bring you in, mate, now you're back in the room. Not only is Ryan Fraser a great winger, he's also got a cracking risotto in the bag, according to James, mate. So he's just ticking all the boxes, isn't it?
I hope he'll be around for tea one night.
You might do it. You might do, you never know. You might watch Emma Moore and think, hey, James, come and sample my stand, by the way.
For anyone who doesn't know, Ryan Fraser lives not too far from me, in case that joke's lost on anyone.
James rubbing shoulders with the stars. But just bringing you in on this one, Dan. You mentioned him before, obviously. The lads have touched on some really key points there. I think his work rate, and I think Stu said something in the comments there as well. His work rate is what's impressed me. That his defensive awareness and his fight. It's almost every time one of the opposition players gets the ball, it's either Fraser or Joelinton that go to them, isn't it? And that's so impressive from a player who's been previously talked about as a winger, attacker, creating chances. Coming back and defending, I mean, that's been something that's really impressed me with Fraser.
Massively, yes. I mean, I just want to focus on his transformation, to be honest, because I just remember, obviously, I mentioned in the last segment that I spoke about, of course, that red card against Sheffield United, but also I remember when things were a bit tough last year and he was playing in that split striker formation with Dwight Gale and Joelinton, and it was awful. You had Fraser in the position you probably thought Gale should have been in, and then vice versa as well, and it just didn't make sense. And both of them just seemed as if they didn't know what they were doing, which they probably didn't.
That was against West Brom, I think, away last season, the 0-0. I remember that game. Yeah,
I think horrible. Against Chelsea as well, if I recall rightly too. And it just, as Chris has said, he just didn't know. Bruce didn't know what he was doing with him. I think as well, when Bruce brought him in, he was really quite proud of. We've got this. It's quite a coup of a signing. Obviously coming with Callum Wilson at the same time. Both of them have a history of a good partnership together, and then proceeded to hardly ever play them together. I mean, obviously Fraser did have his injuries problems, which didn't help, but when they were both fit, you could just tell that it wasn't working. Fraser wasn't happy here. And, perhaps if change hadn't come, perhaps he would have left the club. Who knows? But obviously he stayed and now is reaping the benefits for it, which is really, really good to see. I mean, obviously his pace is fantastic. He can beat a man. Maybe I'll have to replace him in the fan club compared to Jacob Murphy. Who knows at this rate? Because he's doing wonders. To be fair to him, his delivery is fantastic as well, and of course as well, he managed to get himself a goal against Everton and obviously in that friendly in Saudi Arabia as well, even though that was just a friendly. But he's adding a couple of goals and assists to his game now as well, it's really good to see. Of course, it's all well and good doing the running and showing the passion and the aggression, but you've also got to get your numbers up, and he's starting to as well, it's really, really good.
It's interesting you mentioned that a bit about the kind of his mentality and his mood and stuff, Dan. That he seems like a really good character, doesn't he? He seems like he's got a real bit of crack about him. He's got a twinkle in his eye. He's got a bit of banter. You see the way him and Trippier bounce off each other. When he gets interviewed for NUFC TV, he's brilliant. Like the Saudi Arabian goal when he called it a screamer, and it's just a tap in. He seems like a really good character. And it's funny, I don't want to talk about Steve Bruce too much, but people talk about Steve Bruce being this great manager. And you've got a real character there, a real bubbly kind of lad. And Steve Bruce seemed to not get the best out of the guy and not understand him. Now, I personally think that's because Steve Bruce doesn't understand that lad's game, because that lad's more of a modern day player. And that's why Steve Bruce potentially didn't quite get it with him, And then obviously Eddie Howe, with all the knowledge that he has and all the kind of awareness that he is and the innovations, he knows how to get the best out of Fraser. It's an interesting point. Just when you mentioned Wilson, I just want to throw this in there as maybe a slight separate thing. We might do a bit more on this moving forward. But coming to you on this, James, I know you're a massive fan of Callum Wilson. Obviously, Callum Wilson's still injured, and we're hoping he gets fit sooner than later. Do you think potentially just the way Fraser's changed and adapted a little bit, maybe Eddie Howe's seen how to get the best out of Fraser and keep him fit? Do you think that he needs to do the same thing with Callum Wilson and maybe adapt his game a bit and stop him getting these niggly injuries all the time?
I think it's difficult to adapt more striker's game than it is a wide player's game. I think they're two different positions. And to be honest with you, I personally don't think Wilson's game does need to be adapted. I don't think adapting a game means you're automatically going to be free of injuries for the rest of your career. I don't think it works like that. Look, I'm not a doctor, so I don't have that medical information. But for me, I think with Wilson, it's something a little bit more serious with him. And I just think certain people, and we've talked about this on the show, are just extremely unlucky in their life. It might be the way they're, in terms of how they're built, in terms of their height, like with Andy Carroll, for example. But Wilson doesn't seem to be, he's not too tall or he's not too slight or whatever. But Wilson is just incredibly unlucky with injuries. And we have talked about him on the show next season in terms of will he be playing a part? I don't think he's going to be having a big part next season. And this is coming from his biggest fan, as you know. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Wilson's, always will be. But I just think next season we are going to be looking at bigger and better things. If Wilson was never injured or had a much better injury record, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He'd be on number 9 for the next 5 or 6 years. But that isn't the case. And you can't rely on a player who probably plays a quarter of the games of the season when he's coming into his twilight years. So
I'm sure you're
I do worry,
because you're saying a lot of things that I never thought I'd hear come out of your mouth.
Look, I know things have changed. Things have changed so quickly in the last 4 or 5 weeks, haven't they?
I see exactly where you're coming from. I just never thought I'd hear you say these words. That's all.
It's actually my identical twin brother.
Not
really me.
John Lynch. It's John Lynch on the podcast. Get him off. He's an I'm just waiting for Ryan Fraser to knock on your door and say, "That's my mate, by the way. Stop taking this." So, Mark, just to get your opinion quickly on Callum Wilson before we shift on to the next section. You're a big fan of him. I know Villa were sniffing around him obviously before he came to us, and he's a Birmingham lad. He's a lad from the Midlands, isn't he? But he's a cracking player. But he keeps getting knocks, doesn't he, mate? And I know, like, Shearer adapted his game. Owen adapted his game a bit. I know that's a swear word, but Owen had that blistering pace. He kept getting them horrible niggly injuries. And then he changed his game to be a bit of a fox in the box. Do you think, like James, that Wilson doesn't have to adapt his game, or do you think it might be something he needs to have a little look at?
It's again, it's difficult because we're not medically trained, so it's difficult to kind of say yes. Owen had to, but Owens was very much he was a victim of his pace. He had to tone his sort of running down because that was the reason he was picking up those injuries. Shearer, I mean, he had two
horrific injuries, Shearer, didn't he? Yeah, God.
Injuries that really
career-ending ones, really.
I think they weren't ones that he had to adapt his game to prevent it. He was forced to adapt his game because he could no longer do the things that he'd done in those years, at Blackburn and in the early time at Newcastle. So he had to change. Wilson, I think James is right. I think he's hit the nail on the head there. I'm not sure he absolutely needs to. I just think he is really, really unlucky with the types of injuries that you get. And you kind of look back and you think he had that one sort of serious time out. And I think that was what everybody's worry was. And it's never reared its head again. It's always been something niggly that's always got him afterwards. It's never been back to the ligament sort of problems. Yeah, it's always been something different. I just think that's possibly had an effect going on, and it's just as a result of that, he just now picks up those niggly ones. So it's probably, if you can game manage him or manage his time a little bit, and you've got to think at Newcastle, there's been absolutely no way of doing it because there was no one else to come in apart from Gale. So, essentially you're playing with 10 men at that point. But if you can manage his time better, and especially if you've got somebody in and around the club that is of the same or better quality, then that's going to happen anyway. And I think James is right as well. I'm not sure next season he's going to be your number one starting striker. I think that he'll probably have to take the backup role in that regards. I just think I'm not sure what we do. I don't think there's anything to do to adapt to just help things.
Well, to be fair, I think he gets on really well with Harry Kane, Mark, so that'll be okay for next season anyway. So now I'm just taking the big lads. But just before moving to the next section, actually, there's a great comment here from Dan in the comments there, which leads us perfectly to the next section. So he said, I think the whole atmosphere throughout the whole club after the takeover is helping everybody perform. Even the under 23 wins are up 30% pre-takeover, 60% post-takeover. That's a really good segue.
Wow.
That's a hell of a start. Well, he's after your job.
It's coming from a Yeovil Town fan as well. Brilliant. Nice one, Dan.
He's after Mark's job as the start man. But it takes us nicely into the next section of the owners speaking. And I'm going to come to the blue tick man first as our journalist in training here. So George Corkin is probably in your Rolodex, Dan, because every other journalist seems to be. He did an unbelievable interview with Amanda Staveley and her husband, which I'm not going to try his name because last time I called him totally wrong name.
Mehrdad, Ghodoussi.
Yeah, that's it. That's the man. He's a great guy, by the way. But they did a great interview, and obviously they spoke a lot. Just some of the key points. Just to knock some of them out here, then we'll kind of pick them up as we go. They said they want to stay at St James's Park. They want to increase it to 65,000. They're going to rename the 9 bar Shearers. They're going to move Shearer's statue. They want to invest in the women's team. There were so many amazing promises and everything else that came with it. What was your take on it, Dan? Were you excited, or were you maybe a little bit cautious that maybe it's too much there in one go, and you're just going to wait and see how this progresses? Or how did you feel about the article?
It was a fantastic read, and I have read it from start to finish, and it really was like mouth-watering, some of the things they were saying, wasn't it? Yes, I can understand where perhaps caution would come from, because they are promising quite an awful lot. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible, because other clubs have gone and done that. Look at Manchester City, look at Chelsea. They've gone and pretty much won it all in a short space of time. But of course, they've done that before. It got even more competitive in terms of like all these clubs at the top than it is now. So perhaps it might take us a bit longer. Who knows? Albeit we do have probably more money than they've ever had to go and splash on some of these players and staff and facilities. But I think just the fact that people are even talking like this about our club, when this has not been the case for God knows how long now. Ambition is back at Newcastle United, and as much as it may be promising maybe a bit too much all at once, but the fact that we're even hearing things like this it is fantastic. Now, of course, perhaps they're setting themselves up to, perhaps if things don't get done the way they want them to, perhaps that might be creating some disappointment. But as far as I'm concerned, why not aim high? Why not? We've had 14 years of abject misery and disappointment. Why not have a little bit of positivity? I know it's promising the world, but why not go and get it? Because let's be honest, they've got the money to go and do it.
Well, fair enough. Absolutely. I mean, it was a very exciting thing to start to look at. James, just to bring you in on this one, mate. I know obviously takeover, we're all mad we love the takeover. We love what Newcastle United can become. What was your take on that, mate? Were you kind of a bit, I don't want to use the word cautious? Were you just waiting to see how this magic ride plays out rather than getting too excited too soon? Or was a lot of the stuff that they spoke about, did it, get you excited and get you on board and, get you jumping out your chair?
I've been on board since day one, Chris, with these guys. I've got no reservations, no doubts about any of them. I know a lot of people do politically, but that's a whole other debate. I'm not interested in any of that. I have to say, this whole interview was, I haven't managed to read all of it, but I've pretty much read most of it, the transcript. It was very refreshing to hear such open communication from the two of them. And it's something we've been starved of for several years. And under the previous owner, we would never have had anything like this under Ashley. But I love the ambition from them both. I love the passion they have, especially Amanda. They're really talking about Eddie Howe and what he can do for this club. I thought they said something along the lines of they could hope that he could have a legacy of the likes of Sir Alex Ferguson. But they've also got their man now with the director of football coming in, which we all know to be Dan Ashworth, a man we've talked a lot about on the show before. But all the pieces of the jigsaw are kind of fitting into place now, and it's exciting times for us fans. And I think the sky's the limit, really, and anything is possible. Anything can be achieved with these owners. I think genuinely believe the first trophy hopefully won't be too far away, whether or not that be a League Cup or something along those lines, just to kind of kickstart this next 10, 15 years. But it's interesting to hear that they have categorically ruled out building a brand new stadium. Look, as a season ticket holder for many years, that suits me absolutely fine in a selfish point of view. I'm delighted to hear about that. However, if you are one of those many thousands that are desperate to get your hands on a season ticket, you are going to find it very difficult now. And as you say, Chris, it sounds like there is potential to expand St. James's Park to possibly 65,000. I do think that would be incredibly difficult to do and to get the plan and permission. I mean, that could take several years, if not decades, before we're anywhere near making any progress with that. But it sounds like this is something that they've already looked into along with the Bruden brothers and something that is very much achievable in the long term. So yeah, look, just to sum up, on the whole, it was a fascinating interview, and it just reinforces the commitment they have for this region, the people and for the football club.
Absolutely, mate. Well said. I mean, Marcus, to bring you in on this one, I tell you what was interesting for me when they started to talk about players. There was a couple of things just to throw at you and then get your take on it. They said Jesse Lingard was obviously very keen on coming, as was Sven Botman, and he still is, which is a really interesting one. We can maybe revisit that at a later stage. But they also mentioned that they had a chance to sign a player who was a very talented player, but then it didn't work out. Then they said his attitude, they found out it was quite a bad attitude, and they were quite glad that they didn't sign him. So the question I've got for you, mate, is who do you think that mystery player is?
Oh, God,
Number one. And secondly, mate, how promising is that for the summer with the likes of Lingard and Botman if Newcastle can stay in the league?
Well, answer one, I have no idea. Just go straight away. I haven't got a clue. I mean, that could be any one of it.
I'm only joking.
Honestly,
It wasn't Gareth Bale, was it?
I'm waiting for Di in the comments now. Di's coming in the comments.
Or Aaron Ramsey, perhaps.
Ooh, maybe you never know. Possibly.
But no, I think. What was the second question? The
second question was how exciting is that? The fact that Lingard and Botman wanted to come, and then Botman still does, by the sound of it. So,
well, yeah. I mean, it shows that they've sold the project, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And those players were willing to come on board, and you saw from the fact that Trippier came in quickly that just what this is, and this isn't just a money project for these players, because you've seen the pictures of Trippier coming in, and even at the weekend, obviously he's injured, he's on crutches, and he's busy celebrating and getting involved with the team. So the fact that then you've got other players who are still interested and really, really wanted to bring a project, it just all bodes well for the future. It was a really positive interview. I think you've already touched on it. Just that word ambition again. I mean, this is something that was just never likely under Ashley, was it? Even talk. I know there'd been talk about stadium moves and things before, but they were just pipe dreams, and nothing like that was ever going to happen. The place was falling into disrepair he wasn't going to spend money on anything like this. Now the plans for a fully purpose-built training site is another step in the right direction, and will attract those bigger players as well, because it's showing that ambition.
Absolutely. It's an interesting comment there for Colton in the comments there, that players that don't perform from now to the end of the season will be gone. Not good news for Wilson. So that's quite an interesting one. I mean, we all love Callum Wilson on this podcast, it must be said. And not only is he a great footballer, he's a great podcaster as well. I've started listening to what he does with Antonio. It's absolutely brilliant, to be fair. And he's a real character. So I hope he gets back fit as soon as possible and shows us what he's worth, Colton. We can try and figure out a way to keep him fit. But it's interesting what you say there, Mark, definitely. Dan, just to quickly bring you in on this, mate. I know you're having some broadband problems there, mate, so I hope you stick with it. But yeah, so just to bring you in quickly on that, I mean, I think it was exciting there to talk about the likes of Lingard and Botman in the summer. And, if these guys still want to come and we cement our position in the Premier League, which hopefully we can do, with another victory at the weekend, which we'll come on to in a minute. How excited are you for next season, mate, with those kind of players coming in as well?
Oh, massively. I mean, obviously at the moment the priority is to stay in the league, and that's what this whole season's about. But the possibilities, if we do stay up, are endless. I mean, I'm not expecting to be going and challenging for the league next season, but you do think that, we've built foundations this January. We're already playing pretty well under Eddie Howe. So realistically, we can go and really be challenging perhaps for, Europa League maybe next season. Certainly top 10, I think, is a definite. Obviously, on the chance we do go down, it is just a blip in the road, I think. Obviously, we've got the money to come straight back up, which obviously we did come straight back up both times under Ashley, but would Lightning have struck a third time? Perhaps not. But now I think I'd be pretty confident of us coming straight back up under this regime. But I do think we'll be absolutely fine now, though, the way we're playing without our best players as well at the moment. We haven't got Trippier, we haven't got Saint-Maximin at the moment, we haven't got Callum Wilson. Lascelles has only just got back as well. So, and Guimaraes is still on the bench for most of the time as well. So it shows that Eddie Howe is what he's been able to do with this squad, and if he can do that now, imagine what he can do with a bit more money spent in a better transfer window and with more time preparation to build through pre-season. I just think next season could be an absolute joy, and I'm hoping it will be, to be honest. And of course, the seasons after that to come as well will hopefully be even more joyous. And I'd just like to see us win something, like, please.
I think, to be fair, Dan, I think you're going to probably see it. You started being a supporter, obviously, in the Ashley era, and now you're in the anti-Ashley era. So it's two different worlds for you. I do think you'll start seeing the successful Newcastle United winning trophies. And by the time you're all parts like me and Mark, you'll be talking about nothing but trophy laden years. But
you're not old, Chris.
I feel young with this pint of Stella. But yeah, just talking about the best players there. Just to bring you into this one, Lynchman. There was a lot of noise, I think is the best way to describe it, on social media about ASM. I don't want to get into the ins and outs of it because I'm not going to do that. I don't really think it's right to do that. But I think everyone's getting a little bit worked up about ASM. Now, let's get this straight on the podcast, lads. ASM has carried this team under Steve Bruce. There's no doubt about that. And even under Eddie Howe in the early stages, ASM's an enigma. He's a match winner. He's a game changer. But he gets kicked pillar to post. He comes onto the pitch with more fucking bandages than the Red Cross half the time. I think there's no reason to rush the lad back or question whether he's hurt or not, while we're still winning games. What's your take on that, James, just before we move on to the next section, mate?
Do you mean in terms of what the social media outroar, or just in terms of how Maximin's been playing?
A bit of both, mate. I mean, obviously, people are questioning whether he's injured or not. I think he's injured because I don't think he has any reason to not say he's injured if he isn't injured. He seems to have a good relationship with the club and the hierarchy and Eddie Howe and everybody else. Is there really a need for such hysteria when we're winning games and everything's positive, mate, is what I'm trying to say.
No, there isn't. And, I'm not as active on other podcasts as maybe others are. However, I do believe that it can be a point of just people generating clickbait sometimes with coming up with nothing but rumours. And that's it. These guys aren't medically trained people. They're not professionals. They don't know the inside and out of injuries, especially not his injury, because they don't know him on a personal basis. They're making assumptions, and they're making bad ones at that, because why would he have a reason to be injured? I mean, the team's playing so well now. We're riding a crest of a wave, like I've been saying. He's been playing out of his skin. It's not like he's been getting criticised from anybody, and he's feeling low on confidence. So why would he want to fake an injury? It doesn't make any sense to me. But the good thing about the situation with Maximin right now is, yes, it's a shame that he's injured. Of course it is. But we're not just relying on him like we were maybe even less as 6 or 7 weeks ago. Even, forget about last season. Near the beginning of the season, we were still relying on him to a point. But we're not a one-man team anymore. We were arguably a one-man team also with Wilson the previous season. But it's not that case. We're a team of 11 individuals now, and every single one of them is performing. I mean, arguably, if you were going to make a case for us being a one-man team, it would probably be Joe Willock. The way he's playing right now, he's contributing at both ends of the pitch, and I have been, it's not critical of him on this podcast before. I just wanted a little bit more from him. He's delivering in all facets of his game. But that midfield, the midfield three, Shelby also as well, who hasn't been mentioned once tonight. This is a guy that has been completely revitalised his career now, and again, one of the best players on the pitch in most games. But every single one of them are performing, and even the likes of Fabian Schär, who looks a different player now, and it's brilliant to see, Chris. And again, it's going back to Maximin. I'm sure he'll be back, and he goes straight back into the team. And I think Murphy's played okay when he's been asked to do a job, but I think you've got to look at Maximin and bring him back in the team for Brighton. But look, if he doesn't play against Brighton, so be it. I still think we'll win that one.
Absolutely. Now, just to clarify, Dan wasn't upset because he knew you were going to slag off Jacob Murphy. His broadband's dropped out, so Dan's disappeared. God bless him. Yeah, they're bloody student Wi-Fi's. Come on, sort it out, Newcastle. But Mark, just to get your take on this again. Listen, we're not taking pot shots at other people. It takes a lot of bravery and a lot of work to put content out on YouTube. Let's get that straight. We do it. We know what it's all about. So we're not going to take pot shots at anybody. But James is quite eloquently covered that. I think that. Saint-Maximin is injured at the minute. We're still winning. We're still playing well. Other players are stepping up. Should that not be really where the focus is, rather than second guessing as to whether the lad's hurt or not, mate?
Yeah, I mean, there will always be an element of people who will look for something to go wrong. Again, is it an element of clickbait and things? I'm not sure that's the case. It's just that, we've seen people have opinions. That's fine. At the end of the day, we can all look at something completely differently. I think there's an element of danger with stuff like that because you can start to annoy the wrong people. But even as an outsider in this, I come at it as a neutral point of view. What would be the point? What would be the point? And I think James touched on it. Why would he want to not be involved? Because this is
the best football playing God knows how long.
You can see you can see the way this club is heading. Now he's been such a big part of the way that Newcastle played for so long, and you have used him and had to rely on him for so long. Now he's got the ability to do this, but with the other parts around him, and he progress his game a little bit more. So what I don't even know what the reason would be why he would not want to be involved, and it doesn't seem that there's been any animosity between him and the club or anybody else. So it's just it's a strange situation. And like I say, I mean, we've all got opinions on things. That's absolutely fine. But something like this, to me, it's always something you can, an opinion of somebody's performance. Now, my opinion of that is going to be different to the way James looks at it. I will think Chris Wood had a good game. James might not. When it comes to injuries, it's more black and white. They're either injured or they're not injured. Now, unless you have inside knowledge, you go with what the club is telling you, and unless you follow the New England Patriots, in which case everybody's always injured because that was the way Bill Belichick always wanted it. There's a very niche reference to NFL fans. Chris just looks lost. But
I enjoyed it. I thought that was good.
There you go. So
no idea what you're talking about.
Unless you've
cheers, guys. No idea what you're talking about.
Unless you've got inside knowledge of it, I guess you can not believe things. But it just seemed a weird thing to come out with. But at the end of the day, you hit the nail on the head. It does take a little bit of bravery to come onto something and give your opinion of like that, even if you know that opinion isn't going to be liked by other people. So, I think people have just got to take a little bit of a chill pill with it all, and just do you know what? Is not don't get so riled up about things, and there's no need for what came next after that as well.
That's the danger of social media, though, isn't it? Social media
it can be brilliant, but
people
can
can
be
express
just
their views in
horrible.
such short bites,
Yeah,
and those bites can be taken 100 different ways. You know, and you're right, Mark. Opinions. I think everyone can have an opinion. You can think a player's good. You can think a player's shit. You can agree or disagree with each other, but don't abuse each other. That's probably the best way to end this subject, I think, on this particular situation. But just we've got a comment there before we move on to the final section. How much is Matt Target worth? Can you say 1 million or 20 million or 50 million?
How much, given his performances, how much are you willing to pay for him? That's the.
You're not the guy doing the deal, Stu. He's not the guy doing the deal, Stu. Don't ask him to put a price on.
I think his price has probably doubled now.
That's
than
the
what
problem,
it was
James.
at the start of the season.
In all seriousness, we are going to pay more for this lad than we probably would have done if we tried to buy him in the window, aren't we?
I would imagine if you tried to sign him permanently in January, it would have cost you somewhere between 15 and 25 million. I think coming back for him in the summer, if he keeps performing the way he is, that's going to be 25 plus.
25. I'd pay it though, James. What about you?
I'd go as far as 35, 40 for him. Yeah, I think he's outstanding.
I'd take that.
just
we'll give you 100 million for him.
James and Mark don't do the transfers for Newcastle United or Aston Villa, by the way. There's no IT case.
I don't want any abuse on Twitter for that, lads. Please.
There's no IT case going on here.
We've just bankrupted Newcastle United in about 3 seconds, haven't we?
Mark can't even buy a good fantasy football team. He keeps getting battered every week, so you've no chance Aston Villa putting you in charge of the transfer.
Don't. My fantasy football team last week I made the cardinal mistake of not checking games. And realised that the players that I brought in didn't play at the weekend because of the cup final.
Schoolboy error, that man. Schoolboy.
Absolutely. So,
we have got a comment on this just before we move on to the final section, lads, from Dan. Just to go back a little bit, the art of debate seems to be lost on most people these days. Unfortunately, every argument has a reason to suggest that even if people. Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. But right, the key word is debate, mate. You know, and debates have to be done with a bit of decorum. You know, there's no point in shouting and brawling and abusing people. So I think that's a fair point. But we're going to move on from that section. We're going to cover the last section, lads, which is the Brighton preview. I'm going to cover you first on that, Mark, because Villa have just played Brighton, so you can probably give us a good idea of what you found, or how you found Brighton to be. They seem to have gone on a little bit of a downturn, mate, haven't they? They're not as hot as they were earlier on in the season, are they?
They're a strange club, aren't they? Because they were brilliant to start the season, and they have just dipped a little bit in a sense. They had a better start than Brentford. They've kind of found that continuing that quite difficult. But it's the same Brighton as we've seen before, where they're very, very good with the ball. They keep the ball very well. They had, I think, 60% or plus possession against us at the weekend again. But the same old problem comes in. They can't score goals. And, they'll get the odd one or two where something will come off. And the goal the other week from Mopai, which was brilliant. But they can't do it consistently. And that is their downfall. And I think that he's set up at the weekend for Newcastle to continue this run on, because I just think that had this been the previous Newcastle, you're going to find it very difficult chasing the ball for 90 minutes. Fitness levels being a problem. We saw under the previous manager, you get to 60 minutes chasing the ball, they're gassed, they're going to concede a goal, and then it's just one-way traffic. Under Howe, I've got much more faith in the fact that if they are chasing the ball for 60 minutes, I don't think they will be, but if they were, that those fitness levels will maintain and they'll be able to carry on for the 90 minutes. Having said that, I don't think that will happen, because I think Newcastle will have much more of the ball. They are getting better at keeping it. I think I looked at some stats yesterday, and I think for the season, I think there were, 5 games Brighton have had less than 50% possession, and Newcastle have only had 8 games above it, or the vice versa. So there is, possession-wise, I guess it will be quite one-sided again. But I think the difference now is Newcastle know what to do with the ball when they've got it. and they will keep it better than they did before. So the biggest problem, like I said, Brighton have is putting the ball in the back of the net, but they are conceding goals now as well, and that is a worry for them. And Newcastle, the other way round, they've stopped conceding goals, which will bode well again for playing a team like Brighton, and they're starting to find ways to win games too. So that I can only see this again, and I don't want to put the kiss of death on it, but I can only see it going one way.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's a good point Stu's made there. We've also got Webster available, and losing Dan Burn as well is a big blow for them. James, just coming to you, and just something that Mark had mentioned there as well, and your favourite man, Bruno Guimaraes, came on at the weekend. He played very well, a much larger cameo than we've seen beforehand. Does he start this game for you, mate? Does Shelby get a rest with it being at home in front of that brilliant support?
No, you go with the same team again, apart from the only change I would possibly make would be to bring in ASM for Murphy. That's on the condition that ASM is fully fit and ready to go. I still think Kraft will keep his place as well, even if Manquillo is fit. I think that Eddie Howe will reward his performances recently. But going back to Bruno, no, I don't see Bruno starting until I think we've got a run of, is it 4 games in the space of 12, 13 days or something with a rearranged Everton and Southampton fixtures, which come on those consecutive Thursday nights. I believe he'll start one of those when we're going to need his energy, his freshness. But going back to this game, again, without the risk of sounding like a broken record, there's only one winner on Saturday, and that's us. And right now, the way we're playing, I genuinely believe there's nobody we should be fearing, except for possibly the top 3. But I'm confident we'll win this again, and we'll go unbeaten. That'll be unbeaten in 8, I believe. And as Mark rightly said before, Brighton are not playing very well right now. They've lost their last 3. They've lost to Man U. They had a really bad result against Burnley. They lost 3-0 against Burnley not so long ago. And obviously Villa beat them 2-0 on the weekend. And Stu made a very good point there. Is it, and Cools makes a good point there, is that because of the loss of Dan Burn? Did they really miss his physical presence? Their losses are gain in the sense that we are keeping a lot of clean sheets right now. And he has to be one of the main reasons because of that. But I will say I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, this one. I thought the Brentford one was a no-brainer. We were going to walk that. But this one will be harder. They are still a good side. They've got a top manager. They've got a really, really good record at St. James's Park. We've never beaten them at home in the Premier League. So that is something to consider. But I still think we'll get the better of them on Saturday. You look at the likes of Joelinton, Joe Willock, Ryan Fraser, all on fire right now. You've got Matty Target, Dan Burn, Fabian Schär, who just don't look like conceding. If I'm an opposition player, I wouldn't fancy playing against us right now, the form we're in. And you're going to be in for one hell of a game against this Newcastle team, and you're going to have to play your absolute best football in order to get the better of us. So, yeah, I just think everything points to a Newcastle victory. And again, like last week, I'm going to go for another 2-0 win. Willock and Fraser on the score sheet.
Not as excited as Dan's going for there. A 4-0 to the 2.
Wow.
Dan. He's got it.
Sounds like a hell of a game.
Well done, mate. To be fair, James, you're right, and I think the fact that it's at home as well, with just the positivity around the club, you'll be there, mate. You'll be one of the screaming fans.
I will.
That atmosphere will be electric, and I think the players draw off that, they feed off that, and it must be the best place to play football when Newcastle's up high like this, and everything's positive, and they believe in the manager, they believe in the owners, they believe in each other, and I think you're right. You have to have an air of caution because Brighton are still a good side. Graham Potter's a very good manager. But Mark's totally right, hit the nail on the head. They just don't put the ball in the onion bag. It's always been that problem. I think, Mopé went through a stage where he looked all right and he banged in a few goals. But that's dried up a little bit now. Yes, he got one the other week, but, he's not a consistent goal scorer. Chris Wood struggled a little bit for us, but he's making a nuisance of himself. He's bring guys into the game. And I'm with you, James. I think that people will fear playing us. I think we're an informed side, with that home support behind us, with the belief that's in the club right now. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, I think, for Newcastle. I don't think we'll boss it maybe as much as we did Brentford, even before the red card. I think it'll be a brilliant game for the neutrals. I think there'll be some real good football on show. I think both teams will use the ball well. And I think it'll be a really good advertisement for the Premier League. But yeah, I wouldn't back against us at the minute. We're really on form. And I think most teams would generally be worried about playing us. And I mean, that'll take us even further up the league. I know next week we're going to have a little look at the relegation picture. If we bag 3 points against Brighton, we could almost be relatively safe, guys. So that'll be absolutely amazing conversation to have next week. But that's pretty much all the time we've got for this week, guys. So thank you so much for joining us, lads, and Dan before his broadband dropped out. We've just got another comment there, Mark, before we shoot off. We have got one there about Bruno. Stu saying, Bruno will now surely know you play through passes to Wood run onto. I don't know about that, mind you, Stu. Wood might fall over and land on his face in the middle of the box if he tries to catch one of them through balls. But we're really excited about what the game can bring. We're actually going to have a bit of a different match review on Mark on Saturday. So Dan is going to be back with working broadband with his mate Charlie, who's hopefully with his mate Charlie, who's a very big Brighton fan, has a very big kind of Brighton following on their social media. So the lads are going to jump on a live show. So make sure you tune in for that, guys. If you've been to the game, you've had a few beers, join in and jump in the comments and let the lads know what you think about the game. No abuse, though. No abuse, obviously. But just have a bit of crack with the boys, which would be fantastic. But again, we're really happy that everyone's been watching the channel. Mark and I did a Joelinton video, which has gone over 1,400 views now. So we're absolutely thrilled with that. We're glad everybody's enjoyed it. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to break that 200 barrier. We're currently sitting on about 128. We've had loads of subscribers recently. We're really happy everybody's enjoying the show and wanting to watch a bit more of Evermore. We love doing it, guys, and we love to have you on board in the comments. So for now, let's all continue.
Well said, Chris. Well said, mate.
Thanks, buddy. Well, let's continue supporting our team, Call United, and let's hope next week we're still buzzing with 3 more pints, guys. Okay. See you later, boys.
See you guys. Take care.
Take it easy.